for a young player in his position in the league, he's figuring out what his capabilities are, what he needs to work on. And I think it's a compliment when some of our best players want to play with him.
Yeah, it was a career night for Ryan McLeod, and what's impressive, he did it from the fourth line. Welcome to Got Your Back, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Nobody puts in wood, windows, or siding anymore, so why build a wood fence or deck? Do it once with high-quality, maintenance-free vinyl. Call my brothers, Rick or Rob, at DLR Vinyl Products, locations in Calgary and Edmonton. Today on the podcast, yes, we know the opponent wasn't near the same caliber as Calgary, but the Oilers took care of their business against the Coyotes. In our Park Mazda Breakdown with Struds, we'll take a look at Ryan McLeod's big night and how this group bounced back. Dregs and Duthie both stopped by, courtesy Belvan Construction. And in our Who's Got Your Back segment, brought to you by DeBoer's Golf Shop, two-time Olympic gold medalist Cheryl Pounder shares a couple of tales. Presented by DLR Vinyl Products, this is Got Your Back. Good morning, Struddy. How you doing, pal?
I'm top notch. How are you doing today?
I'm okay, man. I don't know why. You always seem so much more together in the morning. Like you look like you're freshly showered. You look like you've been up for a little while. I literally just peeled myself out of bed and, slopped down in front of the microphone here. What time are you up?
I get up pretty early. I'm a morning person. I'm not exactly a night owl, but I get it done and I get up and I try to be, presentable for you and for all of our listeners.
Well, you almost got yourself there today, so well done. Keep working on that, buddy. Listen, we're going to start with some unfortunate news. In the press box last night at the game, when word broke on Twitter that Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnyk had passed away, and I have to say it was quite shocking. I think we knew that there were some health issues there, didn't know how significant it was, but definitely a sad day, and we saw a lot of outpouring from around the hockey world last night.
Yeah, for a Canadian NHL team owner, he was very outgoing. You saw him doing interviews, you saw him everywhere, and it didn't always mean you agreed with what he said or how he acted, but he put himself out there, right? I didn't realize he was only 62. He had some really controversial moments. Now, it's obviously very sad for him and his family. Looking ahead, I couldn't help but think I was leaving the rink last night. What does this mean for Ottawa Senators? What does it mean for their future home in their city? And I know that's not at all what his family's thinking, but just these things do kind of come to your mind when you're looking at what happened to him and kind of leaving surprisingly, obviously well too soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So our thoughts are with Anna and Olivia, his daughters, his entire family, and the Senators organization as well. Remember, this is a guy that, in a lot of ways, and Edmontonians will understand this, probably saved the Senators, kept them in Ottawa, played a big role in doing that, and that's meaningful in the Canadian market, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And, he was very accessible. You could see him. I have friends in Ottawa who'd see him at the games, who'd be a part of it. And you look at the other Canadian owners, you don't really see him. Jeff Molson maybe in Montreal. Is he the next most outgoing one? Here in Edmonton, we don't see Daryl Cates. Vancouver, Aquilini is pretty active on Twitter. In Calgary, they're pretty reclusive. Winnipeg, Chipman is, he's out there a bit, I guess. But, there's and in Toronto, I'm not even sure who owns the team. So, I think that you do have that accessibility, whether you like it or not what he's saying, he was accessible in many ways.
Yeah, no question about it. Our thoughts are with the Ottawa Senators organization and the Melnyk family. Okay, it was a good bounce-back performance last night by the Edmonton Oilers after that debacle in Calgary, and it's time to break it down, courtesy Park Mazda, where the newly redesigned 2022 CX-5 has arrived. Check out the brand-new all-wheel drive sport design trim with its turbocharged engine and see the available colors and trims in stock at parkmazda.ca. So, it was ugly in Calgary, and one of the things I was paying attention to in this game, Struddy, was, whether the Edmonton Oilers let their opponent dictate anything in last night's game, or if they were going to be a group that came out, knew the way they needed to play regardless of the opponent, and laid down a high-quality game, and I think that's what they did.
Well, I mean, it's always fun when you play the best team in the Pacific, then the next 2 nights later you play an average AHL team. And that's what they did. Like the Arizona, if you look at their forwards, would 3 of those forwards be on the Calgary Flames in the starting lineup?
Yeah.
Maybe Keller.
Keller
Krause,
would be, and
maybe
Lawson Krause is a good player.
Yeah, Kraus, Keller, and maybe who's the old man there?
Castle?
Kessel. Sorry, geez, how did I forget? So those are the three. And so you can't pick your opponent, and you can't blame the Oilers for having their way with them. And they did. They came out, and you could see there was a more detailed approach to the way they were played away from the puck. On the goal that McLeod scored, the non-power play goal, both CC and Nurse did a good job identifying where their players were, keep them outside the dots, identifying who was coming down the slot. So, that was an area we were concerned about last time they played the Flames. Last night, that wasn't the issue. So, again, you can't pick your opponent. You can't give your opponent any hope that they're going to win. But let's make sure it's clear that is not a good Arizona team, and they're doing exactly what they want, which is tank.
Yeah, it's definitely the caliber of opponent. The difference there from one night to the next was notable. But I think it's important for the Oilers to learn how to bounce back regardless of who the opponent is. And you kind of get control of your 5-on-5 game so that you can, if you have control of it, you can just throw it out there on any given night. And I think they did a better job of doing that in this game by quite a margin. Give me your thoughts on Ryan McLeod's night.
Ryan McLeod is, we see him, he's evolving as he's going along through his season. What I really like about Ryan McLeod is when he uses his speed and takes the puck to the net. There's no sense if you have a lot of speed just staying wide. As a D-man, that's what you want. You don't want speedy guys to try to press you into the middle of the ice. And last night on both goals, even though his first goal or his one goal was scored from behind the net, he attacked the net, attacked the middle of the ice and then attacked the net from that area. And that's what he's got to do. You've got to press people. When you press with your speed, it really leaves some carnage behind you with people falling down or trying to chase you, and pucks can get into open areas. So that is something he needs to keep using, because if he doesn't do that, the speed is not a factor.
Yeah, I mean, he has notable speed. Like, I was watching SportsCenter this morning, and we did the thing with the highlight pack where they actually put the speedometer on him, and they had him, they were tracking him how fast he was going, because as you're watching that game, it really stands out that he is a lot faster than most of the other players out there on the ice. And it's not quite at the McDavid level, but it's really notable. I thought Jason Greger made a good point last night in the postgame interview with Jay Woodcroft. He made the decision to play him at center. And I know you want players to skate fast wherever they are, but do you get the feeling like McLeod's speed is better used and on more display when he's playing center ice, because he can swing and he's the support guy, and centers have to keep moving their feet, and he has fantastic feet.
Yeah, I heard that question. I thought Greg's was well put. When you're out center, you are able to keep your speed going more in the defensive zone. So if there's a breakout, you can kind of come down and keep that speed. As a winger, it's harder. Not always, but a lot of times you're kind of stationary on that wall. So let's assume the left D-man's going to break it out, and the left winger, whoever it is, let's just say it's Hyman, he's kind of got to post up, and he can be moving a bit, but he doesn't have that same momentum. So you start with the puck with speed more often as a center than you were a winger, and then he takes one or two strides and he's nearly at full speed, whereas off the wing it's a little harder to get that. So I think it's a good point. I don't know that he's going to be locked in at center from now on. Again, I hate to be beating up on the Coyotes. That's a bad team, and you can't get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think he's going to continue to evolve. Ultimately, he's a center for this team, but I think we see him both wing and center as the year goes on.
Pretty impressive stats line. I mean, played 12 minutes and 48 seconds, 6 shots on net, 7 shot attempts, won 56% of his faceoffs, scored 2 goals, had an assist, his first multi-goal game in the National Hockey League. I view that as a real confidence, opponent aside, that's a real confidence building game for a player that I think really rides those waves of confidence as a young player. I think he's still on that roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And I think, Struddy, for a game like this to happen to him this late in the season, I think it bodes well for him as the Oilers push towards the postseason. You want these young guys feeling it. And I look at Yamamoto feeling it. Now I look at Ryan McLeod definitely feeling it.
Yeah, you need depth, right? You need your depth players to come in and to contribute. And, recently Yamamoto's had a significant impact on the offense. And last night, it was really, in many ways, the Ryan McLeod show. Leon and Connor, they were solid, but I wouldn't say that they just took over the game. And quite frankly, they didn't have to. But, Ryan McLeod, Bouchard, These types of young players, they need to find a way to contribute. And it's not always on the score sheet with points, but having an impact on the game. And even last night, if Ryan McLeod hadn't got those points, the way he was skating and using his speed, he had an impact on the game and equally his line mates.
Yeah, I shouldn't do this today because it was a really good game for him, and there's no reason to point out any negatives at all. But this has been a constant narrative with me and this player, and I just have to say it. I would have sacrificed the assist or maybe even one of the goals. Another goose egg in the hit category for Ryan McLeod, and I really feel that this is something he needs to take a little bit more responsibility in terms of the overall. Everybody has a bit of responsibility to add to the physicality of the group, and for how fast he skates and how much he's on the ice. Would love to see him start to finish some checks more regularly. Great night by him. Really nice offensive performance, but I feel like if he doesn't find that element a little bit as they head towards the postseason, he might get shoved out of a series against a tough team.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Let's talk about someone who did use it last night. Jesse Puljujärvi is another player, I've identified that has not been physical enough. On, I think it was Draisaitl's goal, he laid out, I want to say, was it Keller? I think he laid out Keller at the right at the top of the, top of the paint, or sorry, at the top of the circles, laid him out. 10 seconds later, the puck was in the net, right? So bigger player, I get it. But McLeod's strong on his skates as well. And Puljujärvi, he brought a more physical element last night. He did it on Connor McDavid's goal too, in the right area, big, strong player. So you have to use what you have. And yes, McLeod has speed, more so than Jesse, but you have to be engaged physically. And you have to make it difficult for other teams to play against you and to compete against you. When you look at Ryan McLeod's assist, he wins a puck battle kind of almost at the blue line, right? He wins a puck battle there, and then he draws a penalty because he won a puck battle, and that's engaging physically. Now, that he didn't run anybody over, he didn't fight anybody, not that he needs to fight, but by getting into battles, with your speed, you create opportunities for other team to make bad decisions, and he did that last night.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. For Puljujärvi, I mean, I thought he's had a few pretty good games since he's come back, but to me last night there was something different in his game, a different quality. He's always a good puck pursuer, and he always digs pucks out really well. I thought he found his hands in that game a little more than maybe he's had them since he's come back, and maybe it's opponent based, but it looked like he had more space to work with. And he made some really high skill plays, some really nice plays with his hands. That pass down to Draisaitl. Yeah. I find he struggles with his hands a little bit now and then. And when they come around, it really injects a different level of kind of overall quality into his game when his hands are working.
Yeah, he does. And again, I'll keep banging this drum, but Arizona is not a good team. So you gotta, you have more time to make plays. And I'm not.
You're a buzzkill today, buddy.
Well, no, I don't want to be. I mean, we have to be. It has
true.
To be
right.
said.
Yeah.
They're not a good team, and they're doing exactly what they want, which is get the Shane Wright, hopefully the first pick. But it's when you play a weaker team, you have more time to make plays. Your good players are better around you. So I mean, I've been on good teams that played really bad teams, and I've been on bad teams that played really good teams, and there is a significant difference. But nonetheless, he was making plays. Now, what he's got to do is transfer that to a team like the Kings. The Kings are a much stronger team, deeper down the middle, better D, better goal. Well, yeah, better goalies. And I think that, he's got to do it there. So you don't have as much time against the Kings or the Flames or who let's go through the top teams in this Western division or Western Conference. So he's got to do it quicker. And but when you go into a battle with the intention of being physical and getting that puck back, generally speaking, you come out of that battle quicker with the puck. And he's got to keep working on that. And you could see after both passes, both Connor and Leon made the point of pointing at him and saying, hey, like, good job. Like they know they need him. Like the Oilers need this guy to play at a higher level. And he showed it last night, but let's not, we cannot be handing out awards because it is a bad team. You, myself, and even maybe Zuby could have maybe last night for the Oilers, and the Oilers would have maybe still won 4-1. They're bad. I'm telling you, buddy, it's a bad team, and they're not even trying to win. They're not even trying.
Yeah, fair enough. Another Finn that had a good night last night was Mikko Koskinen.
Yeah, it was really important that we learned the lesson from the last game. We really wanted to bounce back. It was an embarrassing game Saturday, and I think we got exactly the result what we needed, and not just the result, but way how we play. You know, we didn't give any odd man rushes, and we played well. And it's I think that's the most important thing with 2 points.
Yeah, from our Average Joe's sound box. Average Joe's next to Home Depot on Baseline Road in Sherwood Park. I like Koskinen's media availabilities, man. Like he's honest, and he actually says things. You could hear the fans chanting in the background as well. But another quietly solid performance from Mikko Koskinen. And I would think that after what happened in Calgary, that was meaningful for him to just get out there, be solid. He made one spectacular save, but just pick up a W and move on, and he needs that.
Yeah, he did. And I thought he was solid. I think that was a really good way of describing it. It's interesting, you hear the goalies speak and some of the D-men, they always bring up the fact they didn't give up or how many they did give up of odd man rushes. And that is something that is obviously on the minds. And you can often, if you listen close enough to the made availabilities of the players and to the coach at a certain point, they'll tell you what they're talking about in the room. And they are talking about no odd man rushes. So, last night they did a pretty good job on that. I don't remember any glaring issues. You go back to Calgary, the first 5 minutes, it was breakaway, couple 2-on-1s. Yeah. So that's obviously something they're really trying to hammer out or hammer out of their game. It's not perfect, but they did a good job last night. Now they got to build it into the Kings next game. But yeah, Mikko, it's a good start for him. He made a couple clutch saves when they needed him. And honestly, in a game like that, they just need him to be solid.
Maybe the first time after the Calgary game that Jay Woodcroft really needed to dig in with his group in a more harsh way, I guess we'll say. Was not a good performance, and it was disappointing. Yet he, I think, has this way of trying to keep his team in the moment. And the moment that they needed after the Calgary game, as we go back to our Average Joe soundbox, was a moment of honesty, and that's what the head coach was pushing for.
Nobody was happy with that game. We charged ourselves with seeing things clearly, not sweeping anything under the rug, being direct with what we wanted to see. And at the end of the day, our players responded. They're the ones that should feel good about themselves with what they threw down tonight.
Okay, so I'll say it for you. Arizona, not that good a team, but I do think that it means something when, as a coach and a new head coach, he admitted they had some tough meetings. They had a day off after the Calgary game and then some tough meetings the morning of the game. And I think, he jarred his group and they responded. And look, they could have come out and made harder on them than they needed to, and they didn't do that. And so, whatever buttons he think definitely helped.
Yeah, that's so, having or seeing things clearly in his coach talk is that we showed video the guys didn't like. And that's the truth. After that game, you couldn't watch a shift without being pissed off about something that happened in that shift, whether you're the coach and or the group of players. So, that's what that coach talk is. So there were some very honest moments in those meetings, and, some guys would have been uncomfortable. So the lesson was learned, the lesson was taught. Now, has it been learned long-term? That's the difference. I think we've seen improvement for sure. But, I really think they have to keep hammering on this issue of addressing each shift like it's your most important and cutting down the odd man rushes. That is a huge thing the Oilers have to identify. That exchange between the high forward and the D, they've got to sort that out, because if they keep up giving, against top teams, odd man rushes, it's just you're rolling the dice every shift, and it's not going to work.
Sets up for a great game on Wednesday night against the LA Kings. How about LA this year? Surprising a lot of people being where they are. Real good team, real solid, and important game in the standings. So maybe they'll show you a little something more against the LA Kings than they did against that minor hockey league team that you described they played last night.
Yeah, I don't want to be negative, but you can't build up a 6-1 win.
It's fair.
And they're not a good team, and I'm not here to beat them up. But you're right. I look at the Kings; they present a unique challenge. They have two legitimate 200-feet centermen that play 200-foot games, right? So what does that look like for Leon and Connor and Nuge and whoever is the center? I'm guessing it'll be McLeod. They've got some good defensemen. Their goalies are strong. So you look at that middle. That's people call that spine, and then those top D. It's a pretty good lineup. So I'm looking forward to this matchup, and this could be a first-round matchup. So I think Oilers fans and the Oilers themselves should be excited to come out and really have a good effort and let the Kings know that they're not who they were, a few months ago.
All right, that was the breakdown brought to you by Park Mazda, your dealer for life in Sherwood Park off Y Road. Book a test drive. Visit parkmazda.ca. Good stuff, Struddy. Appreciate it, man. We'll let. I think the gym is calling you this morning. I feel like you've got a workout in your near future.
I do. I will go get one on a hard one. Improve my attitude.
What's today's like ankles and forearms, or what's Tuesdays for you?
The top 3 abs and then my wrists. I really got to work on the wrists, wrist strength.
You got to pay more attention to those lower abs, man. That's
yeah. I pull my pants up high.
All right, buddy. Great stuff. Listen, we'll try and drop another podcast after the LA game, so we will chat with you then, my friend.
Love it, guys. Take it easy.
All right, Jason Strudwick, thank you kindly. Still lots to come here on Got Your Back, including James Duthie and Darren Dreger. You are listening to Got Your Back, presented by DLR Vinyl Products. Hey, Struddy, question for you. Have you ever tried putting in your own fence?
I sure have. Between digging the posts, mixing up cement and digging the holes, it's absolute killer.
It's brutal on the back. Well, listen, what if I told you could put in a fence without having to dig a hole or mix any concrete?
I'd be much more likely to come over and help you out.
Yeah, well, you're not the first guy I would call, but thank you for that. Listen, my brother's company, DLR Vinyl Products, they've come up with a system where you can actually put high-quality vinyl fence in the ground without having to dig a hole, without having to mix any concrete. They can teach do-it-yourselfers how to do it, and they can also work with contractors who might be looking to start installing vinyl. It's super high-quality product. The great thing about it is that it has fantastic longevity. You put it in, you don't have to worry about staining or sanding or anything like that. I've been lucky enough, Struddy. They've put in multiple fences in my different yards, and they've built me 3 decks. I have totally abused the fact that my family is in the fencing and decking business, but it's great product. Give Rob a call in Calgary or Rick a call here in Edmonton. This is a company my dad started. It's a family business. I'm super proud of it, and I'm very proud that they are our title sponsors. That's DLR Vinyl Products in Edmonton and Calgary. Hey, it's Ryan Rishaug. While many are feeling the sting of inventory shortages, Park Mazda has you covered. They've got new Mazdas arriving every month, including the redesigned 22CX5 in whatever color you're looking for. They've also got a huge selection of used vehicles with new arrivals every week and some of the most competitive interest rates on cars, trucks, SUVs, and more. Park Mazda, your dealer for life in Sherwood Park off Y Road. Schedule a test drive at parkmazda.ca. All right, time now for Duthie and Dregs, or Dregs and Duthie, or looks like just Dregs here, brought to you by Belvan Construction, specializing in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces. Visit belvanconstruction.com. We'll try and hook up with James Duthie in a couple of minutes. We had some technical difficulties, but Dregs joining us from the general manager meetings in Boca Raton, and I suppose the only place we should start here today is with the news that I think caught a lot of us by surprise. Yeah. Certainly did us in the press box last night. The passing of Eugene Melnyk, the Ottawa Senators owner.
Yeah, I mean, number one, you're right. There was a level of surprise. I mean, there had been some rumblings that Mr. Melnyk was dealing with some health difficulties over the last several weeks, if not months, Ryan. But to get to the point of his passing, I don't know that anyone outside friends, maybe the commissioner's office of the national can do that. And I say that as a state of fact only because when the news broke, when Ottawa confirmed the passing of Eugene Melnyk, there was all kinds of managers that reached out to me to say, geez, what happened? We didn't know this. It's clearly a tragic loss. And, when I think of Eugene Melnyk, when I think of his time as an NHL owner dating back to 2003, there are a few things that come to mind. Number one is passion and loyalty for the Ottawa Senators. Like every owner in pro sport, he wanted to win more than absolutely anything. And at times, certain times, that passion would bubble over. And then you'd see the eccentric side of Eugene Melnyk as well. So it's a tough time for the Melnyk family and for the extended family of the Ottawa Senators and the National Hockey League.
Absolutely, and we send our deepest condolences to the organization and to the entire family. So, Dregs, you're down there at the general manager meetings. Listen, the sound of the day yesterday, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not, but Kyle Dubas asked about the refereeing yesterday.
Officiating. Everything's great with officiating.
The best part of that clip was the nervous laughter at the beginning and at the end. And listen, to be fair to him, he went on to talk about the officiating and how everyone's doing their best. But it ended up being a pretty significant topic on day one, didn't it?
It did. You've covered enough of these general managers meetings to know that, the officiating conversation is always a big one, right? The director of officiating, Stephen Wakamoto, made his presentation. He broke down all the data of officiating. Then Colin Campbell or the commissioner would step up and say, all right, well, this is just our annual or semi-annual reminder to lay off the officiating. Do not criticize or challenge the integrity of these people. They're tough. And Colin Campbell acknowledged the fact that they did discuss and remind the general managers that not only coaches can be fined for their rants on the bench or their outbursts directed at officiating, but general managers can be fined as well. So it was interesting to see how Kyle Dubas did respond when asked directly by Chris Johnston about officiating. And we tried to deflect a little bit with humor. But in saying that, in all fairness, maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs have some concerns with officiating in general. But as big of a topic as it always is, Ryan, at these meetings, I didn't get a sense from a dozen general managers that I talked to that there was any sort of pressure points. There was discussion, and we're going to see more of this as we get closer to the end of the regular season, the playoffs, on line changes, particularly in overtime where you see teams cheat, right? The guy is nowhere near the bench, and the player coming onto the ice is already in the play. So they reminded that, look, there is the 5-foot rule, and make sure you observe it, especially in overtime, or you might end up getting a costly penalty in overtime. But beyond that, and just the state of officiating by a couple of teams with concerns, it really wasn't a huge issue.
That 5-foot rule, I heard you guys talking about that yesterday, Dregs. So I paid attention last night. They're going to have to call a penalty basically 10 to 15 times a period. There is no chance, Lance, that anybody's even close to that 5-foot rule.
No, I agree with that. I lose you?
No, we're still here, buddy.
All right, sorry. Freddie Mislachuk, who's the ace cameraman for TSN, who's put up this beautiful setup in the cabana here overlooking the ocean. In fact, he's just been alerted he's got to get going. So I am now holding my iPhone. But no, you're not wrong. But that's a big part of what these meetings are about too, Ryan. Like historically, these March meetings, there are rule recommendations that lead to changes. I don't get that sense here, though. 2 years ago, we were in Boca, and we were, kind of nibbling at the edges of what COVID-19 was going to look like. We didn't even want to talk about it at these meetings. And so this is the first time in 2 years that, all of the varying departments of the National Hockey League have been able to get face-to-face with the NHL GMs. And there's 10 or 11 new general managers since that point in time. So this is more of a refresher, and officiating is a big part of that.
Outside of the officiating, what stood out to you yesterday as the other big ticket item that maybe got some attention?
Yeah, you know what? Yesterday there wasn't a whole lot. Today is going to be more interesting because we're talking today specifically about some of the cap-related issues that are being dealt with. As Chris Johnson reported in Insider Trading last week, the salary cap projection for next year is supposed to go up by at least $1 million. They'll talk about, the cap extension into the playoffs. That's more of a GM sort of concept. I don't think that it's going to be pushed to a point at these meetings where they're actually looking at a date or taking it to the competition committee. Coaches Challenge, video review, that sort of stuff, that will be high on the agenda today. I think that there's a possibility that in the future, maybe not the immediate future, they look at, something like the puck over.
Oh, did we lose him? Yep. Yeah, we lost Darren Dreger. He turned into the question mark. So listen, sometimes when you're putting together a podcast live to tape, you're going to deal with technical issues, and clearly that's what we're dealing with here. But that was Darren Dreger from the general manager meetings in Boca Raton. We're going to pause here for one quick sec and see if we can hook up with James Duthie, who was also having some technical difficulties. Nothing but budget here on Got Your Back.
This is a calamity.
Okay, after producer Chris was running around with his hair on fire, we were able to reconnect with Mr. James Duthie out in Toronto. We just had a technical train wreck with Dregs too, James. So I hope you know you've associated yourself with one of the most technically advanced podcasts out there.
Well, I first wanted to say that my part was intentional, that I've decided that I want to do a separate segment from Dregs. I was unhappy with some of the personal comments he's made about me publicly lately. Oh. So this is the way it's going to be going forward. Second of all, I'm not in Toronto. I'm in Aurora. Okay. I know sometimes in the West, the connotations towards Toronto are negative. And thus, I want to clarify that I live in a little town called Aurora, half an hour north of Toronto. Aurora.
All right. We got that square. By the way, I don't blame you for wanting a separate segment, because if you don't like the stuff he says publicly about you, you should hear the things that he says to the rest of us when you...
oh, no, he says them privately to me as well.
All right, I'll talk to our great sponsors at Belvan Construction and see if they're willing to double up to give you your own segment.
Or just ask to just drop him. Just drop him.
That could do. Just simply Duthie, hey? I don't know. You're not at the GM meetings. He is, so there's a certain legitimacy that he brings from there.
I'm in my hoodie in my office after coming back from 6 days on the beach. So the insight he could give would probably be a little better on that stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, listen, James, we'll start kind of heavy content here. It was really unfortunate last night to hear the passing of Senators owner Eugene Melnyk. And I think maybe people out in this area in Western Canada don't realize, but TSN has the Senators regional broadcasts. And when you have that sort of partnership with the team, you work fairly closely with them. We would have worked very close with Melnyk and the Senators, and you guys in particular out there. Just maybe a thought or two on your end from somebody who we had a lot of dealings with over the last number of years.
Well, I think first of all, on the day or the day after a man passes, the first thing you do is think about his family and two daughters, and 62 years old is far too young for somebody to pass away, even though he'd been through a life-threatening illness before and was able to get a transplant and survive. But it's a very, I'm sure, a very difficult, complicated day for Senators fans. And I think the one thing I'd stress, Ryan, is the first thing that should be on his bio is he's the guy that saved the Senators.
Yeah.
Because they were
100%.
dead in the water. They were gone, and he saved the team and kept the team there. What complicates things is certainly the last few years, where he became definitely persona non grata to Sens fans. The fire Melnyk or Eugene out. You can't really fire the owner, but Melnyk out hashtag, which became common. And he brought a lot of that on himself. It started with the outdoor game. He made some comments in a scrum after the outdoor game in, I think, 2017 about possibly moving the team. And that really started it. And it just kind of cascaded from there to the point where much of the Senators fan base blamed him for everything that was wrong with the team. And I think he deserves some of that blame, but there's always stuff in the middle. I'll tell you, you mentioned us being regional rights holders for the Senators. And, in many cases, less so in Canada, I think, more so in the States, that the regional broadcast is kind of a homer broadcast. Definitely in other sports like baseball and things like that, NFL football, if you ever listen to the local broadcast. I think to an extent the NHL is the same, because the team is the one who sells the rights to whatever network. I think it's a little bit different with TSN and even Sportsnet, that it's not as homer. And I think definitely in TSN's case, just because we were a national broadcaster for so long, that we treat our regional games the same way we would treat a national game. Yeah. This is a long-winded way of me getting to the point where we're doing Senators games. We can be critical. And there was a time Eugene did a couple of interviews on, I think, Toronto radio after some of the mess with, I believe, during the Mark Stone trade, and said a bunch of things that I thought were untrue. And so I went on the Sens regional broadcast the next day during one of our intermissions and criticized him quite harshly for the things he had said, just because I thought they were untruths. And so my phone rings on the Monday morning, and it's Mr. Melnyk, and we proceeded to talk for the next 2 hours. And it was
2 hours
heated at the time. Yeah, I couldn't get him off the phone, frankly. But and I didn't hold back because I am an Ottawa guy, and a lot of friends there were frustrated. So I aired some of my frustrations, or tried to air the fans' frustrations to get his answers for them. But I only tell you all this because, I was left hanging up the phone with, he's not this crazy person that people make him out to be, this reclusive, that he was a really, really passionate guy that really did want his team to win. And like I said, I disagreed with a lot of the stuff he said. It wasn't the friendliest conversation ever, but I think at the end of it, he didn't hang up on me or anything. It was respect on both ends. And he made some arguments that I hadn't heard from his standpoint, and talked about how he'd gotten to the point where no matter what he would say, it would be spun negatively, and he felt like he was sort of trapped in this position of he couldn't win at that point with the fan base. Right. So it was a really, really interesting conversation. And I had respect for the man in calling me and, sort of hashing it out like you and I would when you call me at 3:00 in the morning on the night before the draft for a wake up call. You know what I mean? So I think, like I said, I think that his legacy should always be that he saved the Senators. And I do think he really wanted to win. And it is a shame that, they have a pretty good base now. Look at their terrible team, but with a lot of good prospects. And if they make the right moves, they could be a contender in a couple of years. And it'll be a shame that he's not around to see that.
Yeah, no question. Some nice sentiments there. You can't question the passion of the man. You dump those.
But you can, but it's still fair. I don't think just because a man passes, you can still, you have to have the totality of the legacy there.
Oh, for sure.
You can't put rose-colored glasses on the fact that it was really bad these last few years. And I think he made a lot of mistakes as an owner, but the headline should be the guy who saved the Senators.
Yeah. Great thoughts, James. Appreciate that. So you've brought up the story a couple of times on the podcast now. We should probably just get this out of the way. The incident between you and I, not my finest moment, caused a really difficult conversation between the two of us. I clearly did not have your back in this moment.
I didn't think it was that difficult. I didn't really think it was that difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to make it harder on you to make you feel bad.
You're going to tell the story?
That was my way of getting revenge. Yeah. Well, I thought you might have. Yeah, you want to tell it? You want me to tell it?
No, you go from your perspective. You tell it. I'm going to just cringe through this. All I'm going to say is that I was going through a difficult point in my life. I had recently been going through a divorce, and probably was maybe letting her loose a little too much, with the old, with the bottle, and a trip to the draft, things got away from me a little bit, and you ended up paying a price. Oh, here we go.
Sorry, this is Willow, who's always needs to be in the background during my podcasts and wants to hear the story clearly because her ears perked up as soon as she heard you. Sorry, I refer to this all the time, and I really should let it go because it's to the point now where
I thought we were.
It's basically gone the other way, tilted, where now I'm being unfair because I keep bringing it up. No. And it really, so for your loyal listeners, the draft is a very busy. I have only a few nights a year where they're very sort of big days on my calendar where I have a lot to do. I'm pretty much a slacker most of the time, and Dregs and those guys do the heavy lifting. But trade deadline, free agency, and the draft. In the old days when we held the rights to the draft would be another one because I'm hosting that for 6 hours. There's a lot of moving parts. And so and I'm also a bit of a prima donna in that I need my night's sleep. If I don't sleep well, then I'm kind of a mess. So the night before the draft, we're in Pittsburgh, and I go to sleep I go to sleep at a decent hour, 11 o'clock, ready, sleep till 7, boom, going to be fresh for the draft. 3 a.m. phone rings. I'm like, what? When you wake up in your hotel room just as an absolute mess, where the heck am I? Because you're in the middle of REM sleep. I pick up the phone, and Mr. Duthie, this is your wake up call. I'm like, what? So I'm pretty nice, try to be a nice guy. I don't like to yell at people. But why are you calling me at this a.m.? And she's like, no, you asked for a wake up call. And I'm like, what do you mean I asked for a wake up call? She said, yeah, you just came in half an hour ago and asked for a wake up call. And I'm like, I did not come in. And then I start to clue, and I'm like, what did I look like? She goes, well, you're a handsome man, 6 feet tall, dark hair.
So right
And
away,
like, I knew.
you know who it's not.
As soon as you said handsome, I crossed off Dreger, all sorts of guys. See, that's a compliment in a way that you said handsome. I knew it was you. Yeah. So I was a little bit bitter, and I had to pull you aside that day at the draft and said, buddy, I love all your jokes. Everything you do is fine with me, taking my phone. But on the night before the draft, you cannot mess with me. And I think it's our only hard conversation we've had in our friendship, which has lasted 20 years now. So, but I really was, I was over it like 5 minutes after the conversation.
Well,
I really was.
we were laughing about it that night afterwards.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at you.
I was fine. I was
like,
fine.
too soon. And you're like, well, so this is the conversation I remember from you. So you pulled, and by the way, there was an accomplice that was part of that you never really knew about. You know who it is. You know Puffy, your Rubber Boots podcast buddy. We rolled in. It was way too late. Like I said.
Oh, wait a second. So I know you've never told me this before, and I'm going to do my podcast later. So can I out Puffy as part of this?
Yeah, you can out Puffy. He was there. And he did
cool.
not stop me, and he could have. And I remember I rolled up to the desk, and I was like, hi there. My name is Mr. James Duthie, and I would like a wake-up call in 45 minutes, please. She's like, what room are you in? I said, I can't remember. But my name is Mr. James Duthie, and I'd like a wake-up call in about 45 minutes. And she's like, okay, Mr. Duthie. And then so we get to the rink, and you're like, hey, with me. And so we walk up into the stands, and we find our own little space. And you said exactly that. You're like, listen, love you. Your jokes, everything all good. My wife, kids, everybody woken up. You go, you're dead to me for the next 10 hours. And it'll be fine after, Ryan, but you're dead to me for the next 10 hours.
That's good. That's probably
no, it's good.
That's fair.
Yeah, it was fair. And I just sat there. I was like, yeah, you bet, Mr. Duthie, for sure. Because I found out
Mr. Duthie.
Our boss found out about it, and I don't think he was very happy with me either. So I was kind of walking a bit of you could have hurt me that day, and instead you had my back, James.
I would have never done that. But the thing is, I don't think your fans know like the extent of your juvenile behavior back in that day. And probably it still exists, that the mistake that I would always make with you, and, Dreger to a lesser extent, but if you ever mention what room you were in on the road with Ryan,
it's a no-no. You can't.
It's the biggest no-no ever. And I need you to explain to everyone now the philosophy of the leaner as an adult male.
Yeah.
Okay, as a junior hockey player, yes. Maybe as a 25-year-old on a guy's trip, yes. But as like a 40-year-old plus professional broadcaster, the reasoning for a leaning bucket of water against the door to flood a carpet in a hotel room in your colleague's room, why does that make any sense in the world?
Well, I think first and foremost, James, it's really funny. I think I just picture, and the best is when you do a leaner with someone and you get to sit and watch, like you go hide around the corner and you watch and you hear it happen. Yeah, I mean, a bucket of water at your feet at whatever time in the morning, soaking your socks. Hopefully it's a carpet that gets a little bit wet too, so your socks are wet every time you come and go. I don't understand.
The carpet stinks if you're there for 5-6 days.
I don't understand what's so hard to figure out about that. That is intelligent, funny humor. And for a guy that makes his living with humor, I'm surprised that doesn't resonate more with you.
You see, I even appreciate dumb humor. I grew up on, David Letterman and The Simpsons and such, but I don't even think, I just think the leaner had its day. And it's retired when a male hits 20. The leaner they should be a party where we all officially retire the leaners. And yet you, well into your late 50s now, still think they're funny.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that under advisement along with my my discretion on early morning wake up calls and see if maybe I can't mature a little.
Yeah,
good stuff.
It's all good, buddy. It's all good. And like I said, life is about the stories. And that's going to be one of the ones that when you and I are in the old age
Hockey Hall
home
of Fame?
someday, I'll
sorry.
tell you
Hockey,
about.
I thought you were going to say Hockey Hall of Fame.
The
Us, because
broadcasters wing of the Hall of Fame.
we're going in together,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm hitching
Of course.
because of this
Of course.
podcast.
It's like the Sedines. Can you really one of them go in by themselves?
I completely agree. I'm happy to share credit for all that we've achieved together, James. Good stuff, buddy. Appreciate you taking some time today. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks,
No, you're good. You're good. That is James Duthie. Darren Dreger previously. Brought to you by Belvan Construction, specializing in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces. Visit belvanconstruction.com. Plenty more to come on Got Your Back, presented by DLR Vinyl Products.
If you're a business owner looking for a general contractor to build or renovate your business, no matter how big or small, Belvan Construction should be your first call. Specializing in the design, planning, and construction of restaurants, office spaces, professional clinics, and retail spaces, Belvan can assist you from start to finish. Learn more by going to belvanconstruction.com.
Folks, golf season is just around the corner, and I don't know about you, but I am some kind of fired up over it. It's the perfect time to get yourself fitted for new clubs or some great new apparel. Well, DeBoers has you covered for all of it. Their facility is first class with amazing TrackMan technology in their simulators and top-of-the-field fitting specialists. You can order now for spring delivery, and they've also got a bunch of new 22 apparel for you to go check out. It's a fantastic group down there at DeBoers. The shop has a great positive feel. I highly recommend you check them out on the corner of 53rd Street and 99th Avenue. DeBoers, helping you play better golf since 1999. Average Joe's Sports Bar in Sherwood Park has proudly served the community and supported minor sports in the area for almost 20 years. It's a great gathering place for sports fans. Average Joe's has massive big screen TVs, comfortable seating, and a friendly staff waiting to make your experience anything but average. Come check it out on Baseline Road, right next to Home Depot, or make a reservation by calling 780-417-1113. That's Average Joe's on Baseline Road in Sherwood Park. All right, time now for Who's Got Your Back, brought to you by DeBoers Golf Shop and Fitting Center, helping you play better golf, your local golf shop for the last 23 years. Go see the gang down at DeBoers Golf Shop. Golf season is just around the corner. Well, I first met Cheryl Pounder probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was doing play-by-play on the Four Nations Cup in Kamloops, BC. That's a major international women's event. And Cheryl was doing color commentary. It was the first chance I ever had to meet her. And what you immediately notice about Cheryl Pounder is the incredible positive energy that she brings. We were super excited to have her come on and tell us a couple of stories for our Who's Got Your Back segment, brought to you by DeBoers. There she is, Cheryl Pounder. Poundy, how are you?
I'm great. I've barely got a voice, you know. The girls are still playing hockey. So I'm in the cold rink coaching, yelling at them all, but having a lot of fun with it.
Are you the super loud hockey coach / mom, or are you?
You mean the annoying one? Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to use that word. I'll let you use that word. I never said that.
Yeah, you were close. You were going to say it because you were thinking it. You're like, she is that woman. She is the one that's yelling and screaming and doing the play-by-play while they're playing. Yeah, I can be a little overbearing. I've tried to take a little reprieve and just sort of slowed it down and trying to watch the game as opposed to kind of calling it. So that's good. But yeah, feedback's always been something that I'd like to give, and
in
just
real time,
trying to channel it a little bit as they're getting older.
Well, it takes a certain amount of competitiveness to, pick up a couple gold medals along the way. So that's kind of probably something that was required for you to get to where you got to. It served you well.
It has. Your drive can also be your crutch, though. And I'm just trying to channel that. My husband would say the same thing when we play cards, and I whip them across the table when I lose. But no, I think the drive is forever entrenched in me. So trying to bring it out in the young ones as well. But sometimes you need another coach on the bench to be like, all right, Cheryl, just simmer down a
Just,
little.
yeah,
So.
just chill out a little bit. Yeah, nice. Well, we love the energy. That energy served you really well, by the way, on Trade Center. I just give you the biggest props. You were fantastic on that show. You were such a great ad. You fit on that desk perfectly. You kept everybody in line. It was awesome, Cheryl. How much fun did you
Thank
have
you.
doing that?
Yeah, I had so much fun. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect walking into my first ever studio at Trade Center, and I was a little bit nervous. And when
Were
all of
ya?
a sudden you're in makeup, and they come and they grab you, and you've been there for 3 minutes, and like you're on, and I'm like, what am I talking about? Right.
Yeah.
But what I really loved about it, honestly, Ryan, and just the a number of wonderful people all in one room, and I can't speak highly enough about the people that I'm surrounded by who have been willing, including yourself, to just lend a helping hand anytime. I've requested, hey, what about this player? Or hey, what about the background on this guy? And I just think everyone has been so welcoming and inviting and allowed myself to be me and be comfortable. And that's one of the greatest things. But the energy in there, and then there's little me going from desk to desk asking questions. And I'm sure they were like,
Yeah.
okay, Cheryl, enough now. But it was just great to have that amount of wealth of knowledge and just great people in one room. But yeah, chaotic.
Yeah. And for the folks in Edmonton, like they wouldn't realize kind of the exposure that you've been getting because you're working on a lot of regional broadcasts, but you've really kicked it up this year working on I think some Senators regional broadcasts, and you've been spending more time in studio. So how are you liking the studio life?
I love it. It's awesome to be on a panel that can converse. And that's what I love about it. I love to banter, probably too much. I think I can talk a lot. So I think really enjoying just the person that I'm sharing the desk with, whether it's an analyst or the host, and talking about the play. And that's something that's been a lot of fun for me, breaking down plays, getting to talk about them in between periods, and really having your eye look for certain things in the game that I think having been in the booth has given me, has helped me in that, navigate that a little bit, sort of looking for certain elements or certain things in the game. But certainly the reps have helped, Ryan, like anything, the more you do it, the more comfortable you are. I think the first time I ever did the panel, I think the viewer would have been looking at the side of my face because I wasn't sure. Oh, I was supposed to be looking at camera one. Oh, I didn't know that,
You're giving her this one. You're like this, right? Talking and talking. People are looking at the side of your face.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, your nose looks great from that angle, Cheryl. I'm like, oh, that's great. But so just the inner workings of having someone in your ear and looking at what camera, being more comfortable with it. But yeah, the Sens broadcasts have been great. Obviously they're not doing well right now, but being on one team certainly gives you a flavor of the layers to that team and getting to know sort of the details of certain players, which has been very helpful.
Yeah. You did a phenomenal job with Brian Mudryk at the Olympics, by the way. Loved every minute of it. The chemistry between you guys, you could tell you're such good buddies. You had a lot of fun on Twitter. Man, that had to be something for you to sit and be part of calling all of that.
It was awesome. It was awesome. And every time we walked into the booth and Brian had his, sense going so that we could be calm.
Muddy in his essential oils.
Hey,
I know.
I have got a whole new appreciation for peppermint. All right.
I do it too. I use
it
it too. My wife is huge into that stuff, and little peppermint behind the ears, right?
Oh,
Muddy's always got the bottle, little peppermint here on the back of the neck.
Yeah, I think you can clearly tell by the way I do my hair that I'm not really into a lot of these things. But when I walked in there and he's like, "You got to try it, Cheryl. Just let's get it going." And it's calming. I was like, "All right, I'm in. I'm into this. Even though we have something between us, I'm into this."
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Just being with him and just it being comfortable and having fun with it, and it's sports, right, Ryan? So obviously we're serious about our job and we're serious about making sure that we're getting the best content that we can and doing our best job to articulate what we want to say. But I think it's fun. It's sports. So I think we had a lot of fun in that beyond the hours and the makeup, which I was laughing at because Brian would say to me, well, you kind of look the same. And I was like, well, that's because we got back at 1 a.m. and I propped up my pillows and I slept face up so that I had extra time and I didn't have to redo the makeup. But no, we had a ton of fun. Calling off monitor was certainly, it's not the same as being there, but we had the ice and the sounds in our ears and we lived it. We felt the energy through the TV for sure.
Well, bringing that kind of energy, calling games off monitor is not easy, but you guys, it was a great event, and you guys brought it to life for everybody, and it was amazing the way a country sort of stood still and watched that whole thing happen. So that was awesome. I was so glad you were able to be a part of that with Muddy. Okay, your teammates will say that you are that person that would have had everybody and anybody's back at any time. You were that presence in the locker room, and that's why I'm excited to have you on in this segment, because I think you've made a career out of being a great teammate and having people's backs. And so I wanted to ask you the question. When you look back, what stories come into your mind about who had Cheryl Pounder's back?
I could tell you so many stories. Honestly, it could be my family, my husband, but there's a couple I want to share with you. And the first one is pretty impactful for me. A lot of people talk about the success and getting to the Olympics, and what they don't see is behind everyone's journey, there's typically an obstacle that had to be overcome. And for me, I made the team very young. I was 17 years of age. And I was on that team with, Haley Wickenheiser and Cassie Campbell-Pascal. And I didn't play in a shift in my final game at my first ever World Championship. And the following year, or the following few years, I would play. And then we got to the Olympic year in 1998 and I got cut. And I remember this feeling of complete dejection because I wasn't going to the first ever Olympics in women's hockey. And there's this fear that's associated with trying again, right? The fear attached to failure. And I could not get back up. And I mean this very authentically. It was my personal sort of moment where I was really down. And I had all these words taped to my bedroom walls, including ones that had been written on my bedroom wall from the time I was 8, words like courage and passion and commitment. And I still couldn't find the energy or the confidence to take a step up. And then out of the blue, I get a card in the mail. And it sounds so cheesy, from a teammate who I didn't always hang out with, but someone who knew that I loved quotes. And she recognized that I just needed something. And she knew that I loved to read and I loved words and I loved inspiration. And so she didn't hand it to me at practice because she didn't know how to do that, which was fine. And she sent it to me. And I remember opening it and tears kind of came to my eyes because it was a card. And in the card, it had this unbelievable quote. It said, "Cheryl, courage is not defined by those who failed and fell, but by those who failed, fell, and rose again." And I took a baby step, Brian. I took a baby step. It kind of was those words, and from someone who I didn't expect it from. There was lots of people around me trying to help, but it just didn't resonate. And for whatever reason, this resonated, and I took a step and I got back up. And it's interesting. What we realize in life is that our actions, what we do, we may never truly know the impact that we have had on someone. And, we didn't hang out all the time, but the impact of just that one action would change the course of my career.
Did you ever bring it up with her after the fact? Did you have a conversation about it?
A long time later, I ran into her and said, "You know what?" And it's funny, we don't now that I'm older and when I reflect on it, I could kick myself for certain moments in my life where I haven't given those thanks, because I do believe that it is that impact, which is why, I'm trying to say thank you to the people who are helping me now, because I think it's really important for them to know that without their encouragement, I may never have asked, say, for TSS, to go to push further. And so I think it's other people that sometimes give us our voice. And so, for those impactful actions when I was young, I have to say thank you. Yeah.
My guess is you've paid that forward a few times.
I've been very fortunate. If I have some time, I'm going to share one more with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Right before the Olympic final in 2006.
Okay.
About to walk in. And I'm crapping my pants. I know I shouldn't say that, but
no,
right?
It's okay.
You're playing in the gold
it's
medal game.
Yeah,
you're playing in a gold medal game and your emotions all over the map. And my sister calls me and she says, "Cheryl, you're an aunt." Now I shouldn't have had my phone on me. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, I said, "You're not due." She said, "Yeah, I know, but I had to have an emergency C-section." So I walk into the rink. My emotions are all over the map. My parents are in the building and they don't know that the birth of their first grandchild has happened.
Oh.
So I am a mess. I'm a mess. So I'm about to compete for an Olympic gold medal. And I have worked with a sports psychologist for all of these other things that may walk into my life. This was not one that was on our radar.
Yeah.
And I walk up to our alternate goaltender who never missed a game or a practice, but she wasn't playing. And it must have been, now that I look back, the toughest ask. Imagine, here she's dealing with the emotion that she didn't get the call to dress. And I'm walking over to her and I'm saying, I need you to have my back, man. Can you please find my parents? The only thing that is going to help me get back to where I need to be is knowing that they know that my sister is safe and that the baby is healthy. That's all I need to know. And she looked at me and she said, Cheryl, I gotcha.
Wow.
So right before we're about to take the warm up,
Goosebumps.
she comes down. She found them. So she'd found them in the sea of people at an Olympic, Winter Games. And she comes down, she gives me the thumbs up and she says with her eyes welled up, they know. So I just kind of lowered my eyes and I knew they knew. And so I got back to that place where I knew that I could perform, and we went out and we won. And right after the game, I ran over to my parents and I skated over to the boards and I'm looking up at them and I'm bawling my eyes out. They're bawling. And I have this unbelievable moment with my mom and I'm looking at her and I yell, thank you. Thanks, Mom. Like, I love you. Thank you. And all she can say to me is, Cheryl, it's a boy. And I said, Mom, we won the Olympic gold medal. And she's like, Pacha, we have a grandchild. And so that, Sammy Joe Small never had to do that. Right. And the ask was so damn tough but she did it. And she did it for me. And in that process, we won and I was able to perform for the group. And I've talked to her about this moment. And my nephew knows all about it, but I think it's a real just showing that the teamwork in the heartache too. I mean, that's a tough position for her to be in, but she knew I needed it.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. What a great story, Cheryl. Thank you so much for sharing those two stories. And the fact that it comes from a moment that is just such a huge moment in your life. One of the couple that you will always remember, and to have that story attached to a moment that massive, that's pretty special between the two of you.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it's hard to put into words because when you're in the moment, I don't think you always recognize what people do and the impact it has. But when we step outside the moment, we're like, man, like, what would have I done had I not turned to her and said that? Or, what I had stepped on the ice and been looking up in the stands, trying to find them, just all of that, or the feeling for my parents to know that day that, their daughter won an Olympic gold medal, but yet the birth of their first grandchild happened. And so it all happened in one moment. And, you can't rewrite the story. I think that's the beauty of life, right? We have to stand on top of our stories. And Sammy Joe was certainly part of that one.
Amazing. Cheryl, thank you so much for doing this with me. I had an absolute blast.
Oh, it's great to see you, even though you're on the other side.
Yeah, we're on the other side. Well, listen, continued success. Love the year that you had. Look forward to everything that's coming. Hopefully you'll be a big part of our playoff push at TSN. And you're one of the brightest, most bubbly and important lights we have at the network. Oh. And thank you so much.
Don't make me cry now.
No,
and thank you, Ryan, for your help, because I know last year my very first opportunity came on International Women's Day. And I was doing the Oilers game. And who was the first person I reached out to with the Oilers? It was you. And what did you say to me? Give me a call. And so thank you for having my back.
Of course. Always. And I know you have mine. Thanks, Cheryl. Take care.
Thanks.
Great stuff, as always, from Cheryl Pounder. Thank you so much, Poundy, for joining us. All right, time to head to Kelowna and check in with Basement Chris, or Zuby, our producer, Chris Sabunia, though. Zuby, looks like somebody let you out of the basement. Where are you, buddy? I don't hear the furnace this morning.
Yeah, we're up at Big White. Came up with the family to do a little bit of skiing. Mostly the kids skiing, not so much. It's hard to get it when they're really little, 2 and 4. It's hard to get away.
Oh
And I have
yeah.
to shout out my daughter Ellie, who is like, she's determined. She's just like, let's go again. Like she spent
Yeah.
the entire day doing the bunny hill yesterday, and I'm tired, so I spent the entire day walking up and down it.
Nice.
So yeah, so she did awesome. So it was fun. Mixed bag of weather yesterday, including some hail and driving rain. But
Oh, that's
there was
always fun. Hey,
there was some
I
sun
noticed
too.
you. Sorry to interrupt you. I noticed you got. Did you fire up a Twitter handle? Is that basement_Zuby? I see. Is that new?
That's new. I didn't.
Do you have any followers yet? I gotta follow you.
I think I'm hoping by the time that this go, maybe by the end of the day today, I'll have the blue check mark.
All right, good stuff. All right, time to head to the Average Joe's inbox. Average Joe's on Baseline Road in Sherwood Park. Remember, we want to hear your stories. Email us a time where someone had your back. We love to read these stories on the air. gybpod@gmail.com. I had a busy week and a busy weekend, so I put you in charge of the Average Joe's inbox. Chris, what did you come up with?
Well, the guy's a Flames fan, but we'll let it go. We'll let it slide on this one because he's got a pretty good story. So here he goes. Here's one for you. We had our condo listed for sale and it wasn't getting much traction. Got an offer late on a Friday night saying we had 3 hours to decide and had to be out in 3 weeks. My pregnant wife said, we're taking it because, not much traction. On the Monday, we went and looked at a new house right before my wife was scheduled to be induced at the hospital. Our real estate agent brought us purchase papers while my wife was having contractions. Our son was born early Wednesday morning. Then 5 days later, my mom suddenly passed away.
Oh.
She called my boss and told him, I think that's his wife, called his boss and told him. And he gave me the week off with pay and got people from work to help us move and store some of our belongings in a work trailer and a locked compound. So to summarize, sold our condo, bought a new house, had a baby, planned a funeral, stayed with my wife's sister for a couple of days until the people we were planning to stay with were ready for us, and then eventually moved into our new house all in a matter of 3 weeks. Don't think I could have done it without my boss, coworkers who lent such an amazing helping hand to help us get it done. And that's from Flames fan Jeff.
Flames fan Jeff. Well, any one of those events, hey, like any one of those things, having a baby, having to sell a house, having to buy a house, having to move, a death in the family, drop any one of those into a month, and that's a stressful month. And they did it all in 3 weeks.
Yeah, anyone who's done even one of those things knows how much of your time it consumes and how much you're emotionally invested in it and whatnot. So yeah, I can't imagine. So that was sure nice. It's nice to know that there's great bosses and great companies out there that take care of their people, because that's an incredibly tough time.
No question. All right, that came to us from our Average Joe's inbox. Average Joe's on Baseline Road in Sherwood Park. And remember, send us your story. Maybe we'll read it on the air here. gybpod@gmail.com. Zuby, thanks for this today. Good to see you. We'll see you in a couple of days after the Oilers play the Los Angeles Kings. That'll wrap the podcast today. Massive thanks to all our sponsors, as always. DLR Vinyl Products, our friends at Park Mazda, Belvan Construction, DeBoer's Golf Shop and Fitting Center, and of course, Average Joe's Sports Bar in Sherwood Park. That's a wrap on episode 6. This has been Got Your Back, presented by DLR Vinyl Products. Talk to you soon.